Okay, let's start. Okay, so we ended off last time. We spoke about the Asura Makkot and the Tzach Hadash and Ba'achad, and now the Bala Haggadah goes into Kriyas Yamsuf, and it has this interesting. First, what it does, it brings Rabbi Yossi Agilili, that he says that Kriyas Yamsuf was a the Giluyim of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in Kriyas Yamsuf were magnified to Chamishim Makot, because there it says Yad, right, and by the Makot it says Et Elohim, and here it says Yad, and what that means is that the Giluyim of HaKadosh Baruch Hu were magnified fivefold. That's the first thing, right? That's the first thing that he does. Right? Then you have an interesting machlokes, Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Akiva. Do you take that 50 and you then you multiply that again by 4 or by 5? Right. So Rabbi Elazar multiplies it by 4, and Rabbi Akiva multiplies it by 5. Right, and he gets 200 and 250. Right. Matai Makot, right? And Rabbi Akiva says Chamishim Matai Makot. So let's try and explain this a little bit. So first of all, what's the Indian in Kriyas Yamsuf? So we have to understand that a little bit. So not a little bit, a lot. This is what it's all about. So Kriyas Yamsuf was the siyum of Yetzias Mitzrayim. That's what Kriyas Yamsuf was. It wasn't a separate event. It's very, very much connected to Yetzias Mitzrayim, and it says this everywhere, that it's the siyum. Right? That where Kriyas Yamsuf was when Yetzias Mitzrayim ended, and it was like the Makah Patish of Yetzias Mitzrayim. And that's why the Giluyim, that's what it means, that the Giluyim of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in Kriyas Yamsuf were much, much bigger. Much, much bigger. It got to its pinnacle at Yetzias at Kriyas Yamsuf. And Kriyas Yamsuf is, obviously there's massive things to learn over there, but let's just focus on 3 nukudas that it says by Kriyas Yamsuf. One is that it has this bechina of that it was a shira. It was a shira. Klal Yisrael got to this darga of shira, which is something which is very rare. There's only a few shiras in the Torah, and it says Lasid Lavai, there'll be a shira. It also says over there that Klal Yisrael were koine the mile of Tchias Amesim, Tchias Amesim, which is that's why the Gemara says in Sanhedrin, it says Menayin Tchias Amesim in the Torah. The Gemara has a few daf there that it goes to different rayas, and one of the rayas is Az Yashir Moshe. As Yashir Moshe, which means that he will sing. That's one of the rise to Tchias Amesim in the Torah, and that's where Klal Yisrael sort of got that. They were kind of that milah of Tchias Amesim. It was in Kriyas Yamsuf, which, when you think about it, it's it's they were living in a place where you can't live. In other words, they were living in the Yam, and that's where they were kind of the milah of Tchias Amesim. That's another thing. The other thing that is very very interesting, right, about Kriyas Yamsuf, which is unique. We could go on a lot about this. But one of the other key things that Kriyas Yamsuf points out to us is Zekeli v'anvehu ani vehu, and it says, that they would point be'etzba v'ra shivcha b'yam mashal ra yecheska b'embuzi. It says that ani vehu, and we learn kamadinim out there. We learn hidu mitzvah. We also learn halachta b'drocha from there. Ani vehu means mahu afata. We learn all of this out from Yetzias Mitzrayim, from Kriyas Yamsuf. So let's try and explain this a little bit. Okay, let's explain like this. Well, we'll try and we'll work through Shira, and we'll expand it through there. Right? So like this, what's the Indian in Shira? What's the Indian in Shira? The Indian in Shira is that the Pachad Yitzchak talks about this in his he has in the Chelek of Pesach, that the Indian in Shira is basically a higher darga of Dibur. It's like super Dibur. Right? So what's the Indian in Dibur? The Indian in Dibur is a chibur between Guf and Neshama. That's what Ruach is. That's why your clay Dibur are in the neck, right? And it's obviously it's pashut like that it's the antithesis of Mitzrayim. That's why the back of the neck, right, is called Oref, right, which is, everybody knows this, which is Otiot Paro. Right, that's why the Oref is Otiot Paro, and in the front is your Klei Dibur. Right, a Klei Dibur is Moshe Rabbeinu. Right, that he's the one that's Mechaber Guf and Neshama. Whatever, we'll explain this a little bit. The Inyan in Dibur is Chibur between Guf and Neshama. That's essentially what you're doing when you're speaking. In other words, when you speak, is the koyach of Dibur is to take a dava sichli, is to take a dava which is in the olam hamachshava, and to give it expression in olam hazeh. That's what you're doing. When you speak, you're taking a machshava, and you're bringing it into expression into olam hazeh. If you had no klei dibur, you would not be able to ever express. Right? If you would not, we can say like this. What does it say? Everybody knows the Targum Onkelos. The Targum Onkelos is Vipach ba'apav nishmat chaim v'yihu la'adam nefesh chaya. Says the Targum Onkelos famously, Ruach memalela, which means that you have the ability to speak. Right? So let's think about what that is. There was a guf, and it was dead. HaKadosh Baruch Hu puts an neshama into the guf. He hit Vipach ba'apav nishmat chaim. What does that create? That's called a chibur of guf and neshama. What faculty was created by that chibur? What is the sort of the ultimate expression of that chibur? Says Targum Onkelos, ruach memalala, which is speech, right? Which means that this is the concept of ruach. Ruach is the chibur, is the fact that you are a chibur of guf and neshama. Expresses itself in the fact that you have something called dibur, which means that you are able to take dvarim sichliim, things that express themselves in higher realms, i.e., the olam hamachshava, right? And you have an ability to express them in olam hazeh, right? That's what it means to be an adam. That's what it means to be an adam. That is why the Tirgum, the Targum of Nefesh Chaya is speech. That's what it means. It is speech. So, and by the way, just before you're all Lamdonim, so I'm sure you're going to ask, Ksiva is called Dibur as well, as far as we're concerned in this in the lomdus of what we're saying. In other words, the fact that you can maybe express a dava sichli in writing is also called dibur. It's no difference. It's just another way to communicate. But in other words, it's still bechinas dibur. There's no difference. It's that's the idea. We can explain this also another way. Right? That Moshe Rabbeinu, we know that he was kvad peh. He was kvad peh. So the Maharal, the Rishonim also ask this, right? But the Maharal explains what's the oimek that Moshe Rabbeinu was kvad peh. The way that the Rishonim ask it actually is that what's pshat that Moshe Rabbeinu was kvad peh? He was the perfect person. He was. It's not matim that Moshe Rabbeinu should have any sort of chisoron whatsoever. Right? So the Ran.
What does kvad peh mean? Sorry.
He couldn't speak properly. He wasn't able to speak. Right. You see, when Moshe Rabbeinu was chosen to be the goyel, he says to Kadosh Baruch Hu at the snare, not hundreds, but he says a lot of times. He says, "I can't. I'm a kvad peh. I can't speak." And svatayim. What does it mean that he was? What does it mean that he had trouble speaking? So the Ran actually says so that you shouldn't think that he was the reason why Moshe Rabbeinu was such a successful leader. It was because he was an inspirational speaker, like we've seen in history. The koch of Dibur and the koch to inspire people through Dibur is unbelievable. But that's not the Nakuta what Moshe Rabbeinu was discussing. That's not the Nekuda that was the reason why Moshe Rabbeinu was Kvad Peh, says the Maharal. The Maharal says a different pshat, right? The Maharal says like this, and he says mamash on the lines of what we're speaking about. Dibur is the synthesis of guf and neshama. It's when there's a balance between guf and neshama. That creates the koyach hadibur. And he explains. It's in Perek, I think Chof Hey, I think roughly in Gevurus, roughly, maybe give or take a couple of prokim. He says over there that that's the omek in the Gemara Nida. Right? Everybody knows that the Gemara Nida that says that when a child is in the womb, he learns Kol HaTorah Kula, and then when he comes out, he's smacked on the mouth, and then he forgets it. So he says, what's pshat that he's makeh b'piv? What does that mean? Right? It says, and we have to again, we have to understand a bit of a deeper, something a bit deeper of what this means. So he says like this. He says because the reason what's going on in the Gemara over there is that when a baby's in the womb, his guf and his neshama are not together. They're not properly conjoined, and that means that his neshama can be masig things that he couldn't be masig if he was bound to the guf, because the neshama's free. They're existing. They're together there, right? But they're not fully synthesized together. Right? And Mamela, that's why the neshama of the tinok has an ability to learn kol haTorah kula, because it's not bound to the guf. It's not bound to the confines of his koichas and nefesh yet. Right? His neshama is a total clean ruchniistic being, so it can therefore be masig kol haTorah kula. It says when the child is born, he says the makeh b'piv. It's miloshen makeh b'patish, says the Maharal. He says it's miloshen makeh b'patish, and what it means is, as the child is born, the guf and the neshama are synthesized fully, and the makeh b'patish is in the peh. Right? That's where he gets a makeh on the peh. In other words, the makeh b'patish, the total synthesis of guf and neshama, it ends in the peh, and that's when he forgets kol haTorah, right? Because now that he's totally synthesized with his guf, right? His neshama can't retain in it kol haTorah kula, but it's there a little bit, and that's where you have to get it back, right? It's there b'koyach, but not b'foil, and that's the avodah of life. Fine, right? They said that's the pshat in the Gemara Nida. Says the Maharal that Moshe Rabbeinu was an ishpele. And he says, and Moshe Rabbeinu was on such a high darga that his neshama never actually totally was nischaber to his guf. Right? That's why he was able to contain kol haTorah kula. It was a shtickle nes, right? And Mamela, he in other words, his neshama and his guf didn't totally synthesize, and therefore he was not able to speak properly. Right? He didn't have this koyach of dibur completely. He was too high. He was able to be masik things that were above us, were beyond us. He was able to contain with him kol haTorah kula because he wasn't fully meshubed to his guf. Right? That's what he says. And like Chazal say, after Matan Torah, Moshe Rabbeinu was able to now speak properly. He didn't have a problem with speaking anymore, because Matan Torah means that HaKadosh Baruch Hu puts the Torah into Olam Hazeh. And Memela, Moshe Rabbeinu can now speak. Right? I'm telling you all of that because I want you to understand what Dibur is. Right? Apart from the fact that it's unbelievable stuff. But that's the koyach of what Dibur is. That's the koyach of Dibur. Koyach of Dibur is a synthesis of Guf and Neshama. Right? So Shira, all right. So here there's whenever I want to explain this, I always bring there's a Haggadah of Menachem Mendel Mishklov, who was a Talmud of the Gra, in the Gra's Pirush to Pirkei Avos, and he talks about the Gra, and he says beautiful things about the Gra there, and he says that the Gra was sholet on all of the Shiva Chochmas. We hold that there's 7 Chochmas, which is the 7 Kanim of the Menorah, and the Torah is obviously Be'emtza because it's a Chochma Elokis. It's the highest Chochma. It's beyond it. It's above all of them. But there's Shiva Chochmas, and the Menachem Mendel there talks about the Gra, and he says that the Gra was sholet on all the Shiva Chochmas, and he says the Shibech es chochmas hamuzika ma'od ve'ama she'efshel achayas meisim mimena. And this is the Gra. The Gra says he was meshabech the chochma of music very, very much, and he says that you are able to be machaya meisim with it. What's pshat? So what's pshat in that? So I remember once in Vad, Rav Moshe Zechron Livracha explained this. Right? He didn't bring this Menachem Mendel, but I think it's the same idea. Right? He explained that the Inyan in Shira and music, it's a chibur of neshama and guf, but it's a chibur of neshama and guf where the neshama is goyve on the guf. The neshama is goyve on the guf. So that's why you feel this all the time when you anybody that does exercise, right, that runs, and knows that the hardest time to be on the treadmill is during Sfiras Omer and the 3 weeks, right? Because you can't listen to music while you run, and the run is infinitely harder. Right? The run is infinitely harder. So the pshat in that is because music, shira, these things have an ability to, you know that you feel a sort of spiritual uplift. Right? What it does is it's magbir the koyach haneshama over the guf. That's what it does, and you're able to sort of push yourself beyond what your guf allows you to do. That's the tchuna of music and shira. Klal Yisrael, when they got to the Kriyas Yamsuf, they saw Anivahu. And here's what was amazing about Kriyas Yamsuf. They saw that all of these milas, that all of these nisim and this godless that they saw in Yetzias Mitzrayim, they saw that they were shaykh to that. Ani vehu. Ani vehu. I can be like God. I can be shaykh to that. That's what we said. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu lifted up Klal Yisrael and brought them into His world. They saw that b'chush, and they saw it as yichidim. Each yochid, right? And this is what it means to be a Jew. Avada, we're only zocher to this maila because we're part of Klal Yisrael. But once we're part of Klal Yisrael, each yochid has this maila that he can raise himself up and be godlike. Ani vehu. Ani vehu. He can live in a totally different metzius. That's what they saw in Kriyas Yamsuf. It says they were Mari be'etzba, zeh keli v'anvehu. When they saw that, they broke into Shira. In other words, they saw that even though they experienced B'chush, that even though they're Basav Adam and they live in Olam Hazeh, but they have a shaykhus to something much, much bigger than themselves, and they burst into Shira. A hiskabras of the neshama over the guf. That's what was happening at Kriyas Yamsuf. And here, you start to see the Baal Haggadah, and we're going to see this over till we get, we're going to see this over the next few nukudas that the Baal Haggadah is going to bring out, is that the Baal Haggadah now begins. We finished saying the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim, and the Baal Haggadah is now sort of slowly, until he gets to the end, till we get to the Hallel, he begins to paint the picture how these milas of Yetzias Mitzrayim are shaykh to you. They're shaykh to your life. Right? That's what the Baal Haggadah's agenda is now. The first thing in that was Kriyas Yamsuf, because that's where Klal Yisrael, the Dor Adeya, experienced that themselves. They saw Anivahu. They saw that they have a shaykhus to this. It's shaykh to them. They can connect to that. Each yochid can connect to that, and they can raise themselves up into a higher metzius. That's called Zeh Keli Ve'anvehu, Anivahu. And that's why they sang. That's why they sang. And that's why their dafka, they were kind of the Maila of Tchias Amesim, because that's what we spoke about before. We spoke about before that Klal Yisrael is Netzach, right? That's what Yetzias Mitzrayim was about, that they lift themselves up into a Kadosh Baruch Hu's world. That's why they can't ever get rid of us. But Klal Yisrael are connected to the Ein Sof. They're shaykh to Nitzchis. There they saw that they are connected to that at Kriyas Yamsuf, and there they were kind of Tchias Amesim. Dafka there. Right, yeah? All right, is that clear? Okay, I'll take that as a yes. Shtika kehoda. Fine. So this is what Kriyas Yamsuf was about, right? It was the sort of the siyum. That's why. So that's where Rabbi Yossi HaGalili starts out from. He says that Yetzias Mitzrayim was bebechinas etzba, right? And there was 10, and and no, and Kriyas Yamsuf was bebechinas yad, and that's why everything becomes fivefold, right? It was a higher gilui, right? It was a bigger gilui, right? And this was everything that we've been discussing, and it gets to chamishim. Why chamishim, right? So well, it's because it's bechinas yad, which is 5 times, right? And there was 10 there, there's 5 here. Chamishim is stomach. There's things there about the darga, the Shara Chamishim. I'm sure that somebody says this sort of stuff, but the Nakuda here, right? You can look into that. But the Nakuda here is that Yetzias Mitzrayim was the siyum, right? And that's where all the Giluyim came to their max, right? And that's where Klal Yisrael saw that they have a shaykhus to that, and that's what and that's what Mitzrayim was, and that's obviously why there Mitzrayim dies. Mitzrayim is totally wiped out. Because that's the siyum. That's where it ended. That's where it came to its culmination. It came to its sof. There Mitzrayim die. Now you'll never see them again. Says that's what Kadosh Baruch Hu says to them, that you'll never see Mitzrayim again. You're never going back there again. There's when it ended. Then you have this interesting machlokes Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Akiva. Do you take the chamishim and multiply them by 4, or multiply them by 5? So what's that about? So the Rabbi Yitzchak Isaac has a very interesting mahalach on this. Right? He says that there's 2 bechinas that they saw in Yetzias Mitzrayim, and you see this very much in the Shira. There's kind of 2 things that are constantly happening in the Shira. Is that Klal Yisrael are talking about the gadlus of a Kadosh Baruch Hu and how they, how they have shaykhus to it. Ashir al Hashem ki ga'oga, right? And then on the other hand, it always talks about the midas adin that was niskale and how Mitzrayim were destroyed. Right? And then you get Hashem ish milchama, Hashem shamo. Solilu kelferet b'mayim adirim, right? And Chazal say each there was total midas adin. Each one of the mitzrim, they got, the ones that weren't so bad died quickly. The ones that were terrible, they swelled around. Rashi brings that, right? Rashi brings that in the Shira. I'm sure you all know. There's these 2 sort of opposing plays that they saw in the Yam, right? So Rabbi Yitzchak Isaac says that this is the machlokes Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Elazar says that the ikar of Kriyas Yamsuf was to show midas harachamim, midas HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that he's working for Klal Yisrael, and that's why it's times by 4, because 4 is connected the oasis of Havai Yud Kei Vav Kei, which is midas rachamim. Right? And Rabbi Akiva says no, the ikar of Kriyas Yamsuf was to show midas adin, right? Which is Shem Elokim, which is 5 oasis, which is that it was niskale midas adin neged the mitzrim. Right? And this is the 2 bechinas, right? One is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu does for us. It's aseh tov, he lifts us up, right? And the other thing is biur hara, right? It's total destruction of ra. There's things in Chazal that say that there was the beginning of the tikkun of the Chet Adam Rishon, that you saw that Ra gets totally wiped out. Something that's not shaykh to HaKadosh Baruch Hu gets saying it's not even that it's not shaykh to saying that goes neged HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There's total midas adin. It will there's mishpat, right? HaKadosh Baruch Hu will reveal himself, and there will be total mishpat on the Rishonim, and everybody that goes against the Ratzon Hashem will be nidon, right? And everybody that goes with HaKadosh Baruch Hu will be lifted up. Right. These are the 2 sort of facets that were niskale in Kriyas Yamsuf, right? So that's his take on this, which is very geschmack, right? So here's
so which one holds 4 and which one holds 5?
So you see, Rabbi Elazar says 4. That's what he says.
So I mean, which one's din and which one's rachamim? That's what I meant. Sorry.
4 is rachamim. Yud Kei Vav Kei. Shem Havai is rachamim. מניין שכל מכה ומכה שהביא הקדוש ברוך הוא על המצרים ומצרים הייתה של 4 מכות, שנאמר, וישלם חרון אפו, עבר זעם, מצרה ומשלחת מלאכים רעים. Right? And also, by the way, it's poshut that there's no machlokes on the Metzias. Right? They're not arguing on the Metzias. That's obvious, right? They're arguing about the what was the Ikamidah that was Niskala here, and that's how they darshan the Psukim, right? So that's how Rabbi Yitzchak Isaac takes it. But here's the point, right? That again, we always want to try and keep the flow. We always want to try and keep the flow of the Haggadah. Here, the Baal Haggadah is saying, this is what happened in Mitzrayim. The Siyum was at Kriyas Yamsuf. That's where Klal Yisrael showed, were masig, that they, as each Yochid in Klal Yisrael has a shaykhus to this incredible Gilui, and even who each one of them was lifted. They saw things there. They were masig things there that was more than the highest Navi, more than Maisa Merkava. Right, that's what Yechezkel was masig, the deepest things, and they saw that they have a shaykhus to that, and they burst into song. Right, and there was also Midas Adin, right? That was Bio Hara, right? All Rajas was wiped out, and there was only Tov, and Klal Yisrael had a shaykhus to that, and they lifted up. Right, that was the Siyum. That's the Siyum, and that's where Klal Yisrael sort of were the birth was finished. Right, that was the Siyum of the Leda of Klal Yisrael. That now they saw that all of these Gevaldige Milas, right, are shaykh to each one of them, also as Yechidim, as part of the whole of Klal Yisrael. Right? That's what happened there. Right? Then the Baal Haggadah goes into Dayenu. Right? And he lists 15 milas. Right? Ilu Hatziam Mitzrayim, V'lo Aseh Ben Shvatim Dayenu, V'ilo Aseh Ben Shvatim V'lo Aseh Eloheihem Dayenu, V'chulei V'chulei. Right? And it goes through each one of these 15 milas, and obviously it's Keneged, the 15 Shira Malas and the 15 steps in the Beis Hamikdash, right? All of these things, many things going on over here. What's the point here? The point here is that the Baal Haggadah now is kind of moving. Again, you see, he's starting to move into the realm of how we have to be modeh to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and how, because all of these things are shaykh to us. So we have to be modeh. Kama ma'alot l'tovot l'makom aleinu, right? Aleinu, on us. And each one of these things is obviously a milah, and you can say many pshat. There's loads of pshatim on what each one of these milahs were, right? What they're keneged, right? So Hatzianu Mitzrayim v'lo aseh ben shvatim. Hatzianu, he took us out, he brought us into his world. Aseh ben shvatim, that you see midas hamishpat, right? Aseh be'eloheihem, that he removed their gods. In other words, he was Megala what the emes is, right? All of these things. You can go through you can go through all of them and say many pshatim here, right? Man, Shabbos, it goes to Kiravnu Plei Har Sinai. That's a favorite in the Olam Yeshivas, right? You know, what does it mean that he would bring us to Har Sinai, but he wouldn't have given us the Torah? So there's lots to say here, right? You can be my iron in this, but the point here that the Baal Haggadah wants from us is that that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is now, we have to start being moideh, because all of these milas of Yetzias Mitzrayim are also shaykh to us, right? We have to be moideh, right? That's why it's the makom aleinu, right? That all of these things that he did, that he was niskala to the Dor Hadeya, are shaykh to us, right? It's shaykh to us, right? And Mamela, we have to be moideh, and that's how the story ends, and that's how the Dayenu ends. Right, that's how. So Kol Shekain Ben Bonosho Kol Shekain, that we have to be moideh, that he did all of these milas, right? And then he finishes and he also created the Beis Hamikdash, which or the Mishkan, right, in the Dor Hadeya, right, to give us kapara, right? That's a very deep nakuda, kapara, because kapara means that's also connected to the Brisbane of Besarim, right? That Avram Avinu asked the Kadosh Baruch Hu, and he says, "B'ma'eda, ba'eza schus," and Rashi explains over there, how will I know that my children will be Yoresh Eretz Yisrael? Right? And Rashi says that what he was asking was with eza schus, because that means that we're going to do aveiras. In other words, it was poshet to HaKadosh Baruch Hu that it's a metzias. There's no such thing as a tzaddik that doesn't do averas, right? We're going to do averas. We can lose that milah. We can lose the milah of Yetzias Mitzrayim, chas v'sholom. So that's the siyum, and that's the mamash, like the you could say that's mamash in a way the ultimate expression of ava that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has to us, that He gives us also a way to be niskaper. In other words, that's a moiradika thing. That means that He's given us the opportunity to retain the milah, even when we, from our bechira, right, our shortcomings, we go off, right. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is so oihev amoy, right, and it's all b'schus avos, right, that He gives us a derech to be niskaper. Right, He gives us a base of bechira lechaper kol avonateinu, which means that if we go down, we can bring ourselves back up again. Right, we can retain that milah. Right, He wants us to retain that milah, even when we do aveiras. Right, He wants us to come back. Right, He always wants us to come back. Right? So that's the sort of the siyum of this incredible piyut, which is Dayenu, which HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us all of these milas, and He says that they're shaykh to us. So we have to start to be modeh, and and He gave us He always gave us a derech to come back, because that's our mahus, that's who we are, that's our identity now. We are the Bnei Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. That's who we are. But etzem, right? And even if we fall, it's not who we are. And Mamela HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us a derech to come back. Right? So fine, okay. So that's what I wanted to tell you guys today. I want to save Rabban Gamliel tomorrow. I want to go into, then we go because there's a lot here, and so we're going to go into Pesach Matzah tomorrow. That's an amazing thing, right? Where Rabban Gamliel will start to explain to us that all the inyanim of Yetzias Mitzrayim, they actually express themselves in our mitzvahs, right? But yeah, we'll expand on this tomorrow. Right, okay, all right. So Ad Kan.